when you talked about balance,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like, balance, I don't really believe in balance. I think balance is too elusive. I believe in rhythm. Those are what I was saying to you. So it's like when Matt and I was growing up in Queens, back in the days in the park, they had this thing called a seesaw. They
Mm-hmm.
already took that out of parks. The kids done fell off of them and died and bust their heads open. Remember that
Seesaw,
joint, the
yeah.
seesaw? But on the seesaw, if two kids got on there and they was the exact same weight, then you could have balance,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so when you think about balance, you generally have balance when things are the same weight. But if you really think about life, when are things really the same weight? When does family always weigh the same as business, or business weigh the same as family? In one season, you might have to devote more time to one thing and less time to another. And then in another season, you have to devote more time to one thing and another
Mm-hmm.
time to. So I always say, since you can't really find that equilibrium between everything, you just got to know your rhythm for your season. You know what I mean? It's like, where do you need to be investing your time in this season? What do you need to prioritize in this season? So that's why I said I feel like we kind of
Okay, so
share them
yeah,
values. You
it's
gotta
pretty the
find.
same.
Yeah.
Yours sounds cooler. Rhythm.
Nah, your joint is dope too. It's just like,
Cool way
you
of
just gotta.
saying knowing how to prioritize.
I think that, but prioritize is dope. But I just, you gotta. I agree. You know what I'm saying? We gotta know what to prioritize. That's another way of me just saying you gotta know how to find the rhythm for the season that you're in.
Mm-hmm,
You know what I
mm-hmm.
mean? Like, so there was a season when, I couldn't invest in my family the way that I wanted to because I was building something, and my wife was gracious enough to be like, yo, you go and build what you gotta build. I'll be here when you get home. You know what I mean? And so she gave me time to go build what I was building. And now it has been established to a certain degree, and there's help and there's staff. Now I could give more time to my family. I could give more time to my wife, my kids, and take the vacations when it takes. So the rhythm change, and for us, as long as we was in agreement about that, we just got to be in agreement about that with them. I mean, if you got a significant other like you do, we just got to be in agreement about that rhythm.
So you said you're from the Bronx.
From Queens.
Queens.
Yeah.
Ooh, is that curse word? Did I finish y'all out?
Nah,
Yeah,
you all right.
my
You all right.
bad.
Nah, you all right.
But you went the godly route. What was that journey?
Yeah,
Or
I don't even
crossroads?
know if I say I went the godly route so much as to say I feel like the godly route chose me. You know what I mean? It's like, Matt and I, we came out the streets, we done did our dirt, we ain't proud of everything we did. I think I was in like my early 20s and I was really suicidal. I remember sitting in an apartment and I had the shotgun on my lap, but I was a coward. I couldn't pull the trigger. You know what I mean? So when I got a fifth of Henny, I see can I get myself drunk enough to pull this trigger. And I remember my door was unlocked. So this female I knew, she came to visit me. She walked right in the door, sat down, and was like, she said nothing, but her presence made me just not pull that trigger. It was like 6 months later, I'm in the exact same spot and suicidal, searching for purpose, searching for fulfillment and meaning. I go into a bathroom and I started yelling at the sky, like, man, God, if you exist, this would be this. And if you existed, that would be that. And I felt like God met me in that bathroom. He changed my life in that bathroom. No church, no choir, no Bibles, nothing was in there. It was just a suicidal man and a heavenly father that was willing to listen to my cry. You feel what I'm saying? So for me, it wasn't even like a search. It was like the lowest point of my life. God found me at the lowest point of my life. So that's how I ended up on the path I'm on right now
With the church.
with a church.
10 years in.
10 years in.
What is that? I feel like a couple weeks ago, it was like a very public young woman who had committed suicide, and like the messages that she had sent prior to were revealed. And I remember telling my husband, like, I can't believe that people have these thoughts. Like, I can't believe that people really, truly feel like I do not want to live this life anymore. So what was that? And I mean, you don't have to tell us what it was you were going through, but what was that moment that was like, I would rather not be here than to have to live this
Yeah,
another day?
I think for me, I can't speak for everybody. I feel like for those who battle with depression, I feel like we're not monolithic. So everybody's not going to have the same reason. I think for me, it was just a sense of hopelessness. It's like you waking up, but you have no hope for tomorrow. You can't see past today. You feel like if you remove yourself from life, nobody's gonna miss you. Your presence it's not going to really the absence of your presence is not really going to matter. And so I think for some people, at least for me, I felt like the pain of that hopelessness was so great, I would rather just erase that pain by not being here, thinking that was the answer, you know. And when I look back on what has happened in my life since that moment, I look at how much I would have lost and the people who would have suffered had I pulled that trigger or had I done what I was thinking about doing. So I think for me, it was what I would call like an extreme hopelessness. You know, I think there was a good hopelessness and there's a bad hopelessness. For me, that was a bad hopelessness. It was extreme, you know. I think there's a good hopelessness. That's a whole nother conversation. There's a healthy hopelessness, which is another thing we could talk about. But it was just hopelessness. Just can't see past tomorrow. And just the pain of today was so great. So I don't want to keep living this way. I'd rather just not be here. You feel what I'm saying?
What's
So
a healthy hopelessness?
yeah. So I think a healthy hopelessness is when we're dealing with what I call like in life endings that are necessary, necessary endings. So this would be like you were sharing with us off camera about, a difficult season in your life when you was in a
Mhm.
relationship you feel like you had to end. So think about times we've been in relationships that we could sense that this relationship is not going anywhere. Uh, the relationship is toxic. I'm at a job and I know that my season has come to an end. I'm in an industry. I know in the industry my time has come to an end, but I don't have the courage to step out. So you keep delaying the inevitable. You keep delaying what you know you got to do. Either you don't want to pull the trigger or you don't want to make that step. And so a healthy hopelessness is when you get to the point when you realize this thing that I'm in is not going to change. This
Mhm.
person I'm with, they're not going to change. This circumstance is not going to change. And the longer I sit in it, I am just delaying the inevitable. So when you get to a healthy hopelessness, you realize nothing good is going to come out of this. I get to a point where the hopelessness is healthy. And then I have the courage to either step out of that bad relationship, bad circumstance, make change, pull the trigger, fire the person, whatever that looks like based on your context. When you get to that healthy hopelessness, when you get to the point where you realize it's time for me to make a change. And sometimes people don't make that change because they don't get to that healthy hopelessness. It's like you
They
be on
still
the
holding
brink.
on.
Yeah, you be on the brink of ending the relationship. And then you see the person, they look good in an outfit. And you be like, man, maybe we could try this one more time. And you try to stay with them for another 3 months and you just be miserable. Or you'll be at the job and you know it's time to leave, right? And they give you a little promotion. You say, maybe let me try to do this for 6 more months. You stay there, you be miserable. And you keep deferring the decision you gotta make.
Mhm.
When you get to a healthy hopelessness, you recognize this is over, it's dead, it's not going to be resurrected. It's time for me to move on, end the relationship, sever the ties, stop the business, kill the dead horse, start the new initiative, whatever the case may be. And I think we got to have a healthy hopelessness to give us the courage to bring about necessary endings. That makes sense?
Yep.
Necessary endings.
Necessary endings. Some endings are necessary. I think in life we have this false perception like that everything we start gotta continue. I don't think everything we start gotta continue. Some relationships have to end. Some seasons have to end.
Expiration dates.
They got expiration dates, man. Some business relationships they gotta end. You know, some projects we're working on gotta end. So like I say, if you're riding a dead horse, it's time to dismount. A dead
Mhm.
horse is not going to carry you no further. You got to dismount. I think we just have to have the both love for ourselves and love for the other person or circumstance to say, we're not doing each other a favor by staying in this. You need to go and find what's best for you. I need to go and find what's best for me. Let's just part ways. Hopefully that could be amicable. In where the space I'm in, sometimes that has to happen. It doesn't always feel good, but sometimes it has to happen. This has happened in relationships. We've all had necessary endings in relationships. And so I think sometimes endings are necessary. They must happen. And when we don't do it, we just delay the inevitable.
One of the things that we were talking about was like and you used to be a teacher too. So maybe
Yeah.
you experienced like the box that they put teachers in. Like I felt very restricted
Yeah.
as a 21, 22, 23-year-old teacher that was
Mhm.
like, I can't do anything. And this was before social media really even was what it was. But I felt like you can't really have a life outside of this teacher box.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine being a pastor
Yeah.
and the pastor box.
Yeah.
How do you navigate the pastor
Man,
box?
that's a darn good question. You know. So I feel like similar to the teaching industry, because I was in that space. There is a box that people do put ministers or pastors in. Not to mention, we live in this glass bowl, and I think for me, again, because pastoring is not monolithic, I'm just going to speak for me. Um, I see pastoring as a part of my function, but not all of my function. And so I have different roles and different hats. I am a husband, I am a father, I am a pastor, I am an investor, and so I don't have to just be labeled by a particular title. The pastorate for me is an office, but at the end of the day, I'm a servant. Um, I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm an investor. And there's other things I want to do outside of just pastoral ministry. There's dreams I still have that are not yet fulfilled. And so I think you just have to choose not to live in that box. You got to choose not to live by the labels and stereotypes that people put on you. I think when we accept certain labels and stereotypes, sometimes they have the power to mitigate our ability to dream and to imagine and to be creative
And to
and
have a drink.
and to have a drink, and to have steak and cab and enjoy a glass of wine with your steak and have a Chardonnay with your fish, whatever the case may be. You know what I mean?
It's like you cannot label yourself, but the people still very much so put those restrictions on
I
you.
mean,
I
you'll
feel
think
like.
about this, right? Like in the scriptures, Jesus, when he was alive, he lived in the first century AD. And when he was alive, he had haters. Let's just say, in modern terms, he had trolls that would come on his feed and be like, man, you are drunk. You're always drunk. You're always hanging out with ratchet people. You live a licentious life and all this. So he was accused of being drunk and hanging out with people who he shouldn't be hanging out with, right? So think about that. If he's being accused of being a drunk and he's being accused of hanging out with people he's not supposed to hang out with, that means he knew how to enjoy himself and his life outside of just preaching and teaching and healing and performing miracles. He spent time with people who were not like him. You know what I'm saying? He drank wine. He was at parties. He laughed. He liked children. He's not this stuffy person that everybody make him out to be. He had fun. He enjoyed himself. One time they're trying to push him to do something. He's like, nah, I'm not ready to do all that ministry. I'm just at this wedding enjoying myself. And so he knew how to enjoy himself. He knew how to enjoy life. And so I feel like, it don't have to be all stuffy. We don't gotta be in a box. I remember one time Matt was doing a conference with DJ Envy. And I think it was here in Atlanta, as a matter of fact. Matt was doing this big conference with DJ Envy, and they was doing real estate and mortgage, and they was teaching people. And Envy and I was having a conversation in the corner, and somebody took a picture of that. And somebody came on my IG and was like, "Yo, why you hanging out with DJ Envy? Yo, why you hanging out with, like, I see you with MG, the mortgage guy. You out there with DJ Envy. I thought you was a man of the cloth. Why you hanging out with them? You know?" And I was like, "Bro, have you not read the scriptures? Like." So I'm wrong for spending time with people that's not in my industry or not in my space, or even spending time with people that don't believe the way I believe. Like, I'm not gonna spend my whole life in a box where all my time is spent with people that believe what I believe, or attend church.
You can't grow that way either.
Nah, you can't grow that way, and then you can't reach people that way. So I want to spend time with people that don't believe what I believe. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna walk around and be judging people for what they do. I want to spend time with people who are in the street, and time with people who are in different industries, and time with people that don't believe what I believe. And I like having social equity with a plurality of different types of people, not just pastors and ministers and leaders and things of that nature. That makes sense? Yeah, I don't want to be in that box.
How you memorize the whole Bible?
Good question.
Because
Good
I
question.
told you for one of my podcast episodes, I call it a solo sermon. I very much so feel like, can't prove it, but I very much so feel like the conversation I have on my solo shows is a very spirit led,
Yeah,
God speaking through me. But I wouldn't categorize myself as a Christian. I don't go to church.
yeah,
I feel like I'm a very spiritual person, but I
yeah,
feel like when you even mention God, the what comes along with that is the expectation of you to be churchy or know all the Bible verses, and that's not me. But I still have a very close relationship with God. I know the things
yeah.
He's done for me and to me and through me. But that feels like pressure to know all the scriptures and memorize the whole Bible. And
Yeah. I mean, for me, I don't have the whole Bible memorized, but I know a lot of it. And what I know is obviously from 20 years of study, but most of it is from life. You know what I mean? It's like all of us in this room have gone through hardships in our life. There's nobody who hasn't gone through hardships, drama, all kind of stuff. So when I've gone through different things and have been comforted by things that Jesus has said or one of his followers has said, that verse becomes then a part of my life. So I may not have had it on a cue card, but I lived through some pain. And because I've lived through that pain, that verse becomes a part of me. So now it's in my memory, not because I spent all day memorizing, but because I lived through something. Not against memorization. I think that is good. And I think there's a place for that and it's valuable. But a lot of the verses I know is things I've lived through and taught have become a part of me from just experiencing life. That makes sense?
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's how that is for me. I'm not under the pressure to memorize the whole thing. The only pressure I feel is to just make sure I fulfill my purpose and my calling. That's what that is for me. Yeah, I'm not gonna say in front act like I'm a walking Bible. I'm not. I know a lot. A
What's your
lot.
favorite verse in the Bible?
That's a dope verse. So my favorite verse in the Bible was written by a man named Solomon. There was a
Mhm.
king in Israel. His name was Solomon. He's accredited for being one of the wisest people that ever lived. He lived at a time before the birth of Christ, so in the BC days, and he had this journal. He had this journal called Proverbs. That journal was preserved for us in the Old Testament of the Bible. In his journal, he wrote these words. He said, he wrote, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all of your ways, acknowledge me, and I will direct your path." That's my favorite because I feel like for me, I need that GPS. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I make a ton of mistakes. And so I feel like God for me has been a GPS kind of guiding me down a path. And so that's my favorite verse because it reminds me that there's something outside of me, someone outside of me who I can look to for guidance. So that's really my favorite verse. It's like my GPS verse. That makes sense?
A GPS
Yeah,
verse.
it's not even like the John 3:16. For God so loved the world, gave his only begotten son, whoever believe in him will not perish and have everlasting. I mean, that's the scripture everybody got on their bracelet and their
Tattoo
t-shirt
verse.
and their
Yeah.
tattoo. Nah, my favorite one is the GPS verse, man. You know what I mean? It's like if we cry out to him, he's willing enough to guide us. He's kind enough to say, go left and go right. It's just a lot of us don't tap into that. So that's my favorite.
So how do you tap into that GPS
Yeah.
for someone who doesn't go to church?
So I think, it's a simple, I think sometimes we over spiritualize this whole thing. I think those who are on the outside of church, I think church and pastors and leaders, we've done such a disservice in our mannerisms and our behaviors and our ways to just kind of, I feel like people don't have a problem with God. Like my sister right here, they just got a problem with the people that represent him. They don't represent him well. And so I feel like for people outside of, the church world, how would you apply that? You find yourself in a situation where you really don't know what to do. And in a point of humility, you say, God, I really don't know what to do. Would you give me some guidance? Show me what I need to do. And sometimes he's gracious enough to respond. Sometimes that response, we don't pick up on it. It could be a door that closed, and that was an answer. It could be something that shift, and that was an answer. It could be him shutting down every option except this one, and that's an answer. So sometimes he responds through circumstances, but we don't pick up on that. And I think in a point of humility, um, a good example of that, right? It's like, you know, a person, um, a person is trying to make a decision between whether or not to stay in a city or go take a job somewhere else, and they really don't know what to do. Say, God, listen, I really don't know what to do. Would you help me? I'm just trying to figure this out. All of a sudden, one opportunity closed. There's only one left. And if we pick up on that, we're smart enough to jump on that road, you know. And to the degree we could develop a relationship with God through Christ, we become true sons and daughters. He's more inclined to keep leading us and guiding us in that regard. You know what I mean? We don't got to spend this whole conversation talking about God and church.
I was
No,
intrigued
I'm
though.
intrigued
Yeah.
too.
You know what I'm saying? But for me, it's kind of like I need that guidance. Think about this, right? Just let me like you had to drive to this hotel,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to drive to this hotel. But for the most part, man, even when I came here, if you're going somewhere you ain't never been, you don't just I mean, nobody going to the store right now and buying a map. That's old school. That's back in the days. Man, you pull out your iPhone, you hit that GPS joint, you put in your coordinates. I mean, which one feels better? Trying to figure out your way and bumping your head, or having something to tell you, make a left, make a right. I'll give you a good example of this, right? There was this guy who he was a pilot. He was flying this plane over like Arizona somewhere, like out in the desert. And it was this small little 2-lane street, and there was a Mack truck on the street, and there was this car behind the truck. So he's flying and he's watching the car. The car will pop out from behind the truck, and a car will be coming. He'll pop back behind the truck. He'll wait a couple minutes. He can't see, so he pop back out and behind the truck. He get in the lane to pass the truck. A car's coming. He got to get back behind the truck. So the dude in the pilot, he's watching this go on for a few minutes. And then the pilot says he had this thought like, man, if I could call that dude on his cell phone from my vantage point where I am, since I'm higher than him, I could tell him when it's safe to pass and when it's safe to go around that truck and when he should stay, because I could see everything coming down the road that he can't see. So when I think about how God guides, it's like he's like that pilot. Because of his vantage point, he can see down the road. If you take that left, it's gonna be mad. It's not gonna work out good for you. If you make that right, it's not gonna. But from his vantage point, he can see when it's safe to pass, when it's safe to stay, when it's safe to step out, when it's safe to not step out. And so I feel like that GPS, that life verse, is important to me because he can see more than I can see. So that's why I keep tapping in. You know what I mean? I want him to be able to talk to me from where he is and say, okay, now it's safe to pass, now it's safe not to pass, and so forth and so forth.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah,
GPS.
GPS, man.
I like that.
Yeah,
Prayer, you like
GPS.
that?
I do. I say something similar, but I didn't know it was a Bible verse. See, I don't know how to
What do
Bible
you
You know what I
say?
verses.
mean?
I mean, I have a in one of my solo sermons, I talked about the fact that God is your GPS. It's like if you don't go with God, you're literally getting in the car and letting the car drive you wherever the car wants to take you.
Yeah.
But when you're going with God, He can guide you, He can direct you if you tap in. It's literally the same thing. I didn't even know it was a Bible verse. See, so God be still working with your girl.
Yeah, he
Even though
working with
you
your
keep
girl.
tapping into that Bible, He still be working with your girl. He still
Yeah,
be
he
working with
working
your
with
girl.
your girl, man.
How hard is it running a church? The business side of it, right? Because when people, they hear church, you giving tithes and everything like that, but they don't really understand like the business behind it.
Yeah,
Like you have a lot of bills.
yeah, we do.
Like how is that
Yeah, I think
the business of the Lord?
yeah, the business. I think some people get uncomfortable in this part of the conversation, right? Because they want to associate piety with poverty. That because you're a minister, you got to be poor, and your church got to be poor because Jesus didn't have a place to lay his head. So we like to conflict piety with poverty. But the truth of the matter is, there are ministries and churches that have resources. My church has resources. Um, I employ, over 15 people, and you gotta pay staff. I've never had to furlough nobody through the pandemic, ain't had to lay nobody off through the pandemic. We got people with good salaries at our church who's paying their bills and taking care of their family. And so there is for lack of a better term, a business side of the church. And I feel like a pastor, just like you're an entrepreneur, y'all are serial entrepreneurs, y'all are influencers, y'all have staff and businesses and things like that. It takes a certain level of um, acumen, prowess, um, stewardship to be able to handle the money's coming in. So we ain't selling chicken dinners, right? I ain't selling no iPhones. People are trusting us by they believe in a vision. They see what we're trying to do in the city and the community, so they give towards that vision. As a single mother who just put $20 in the offering, I got a responsibility, a moral responsibility to steward that $20 right. I can't take that $20 and go blow that. And so I think on the business side, you got to have structures, financial structures that first keep you in compliance with the IRS. I don't want to be preaching from behind a prison bar. So we got structures in place to keep us in compliance with the IRS. Then we have accountability structures, right? Accountability structures for staffing and for salary and making big decisions. There's certain decisions I'm not going to make. Like I don't make decisions in my church that's above $100,000. If we have to make a decision that's 100 grand or more, there's certain structures in place where there's accountability, and things of that nature. And so I think you have to have good CFOs. We have good CFOs. We have a external financial organization that helps to manage all of our assets and our resources. I can't swipe a card for Starbucks without them knowing, where that receipt is going. And so we have all of these systems and accountability measures in place to properly steward the generosity of God's people. We don't want to be bad stewards. And so running a business side is hard, especially when you got to make tough decisions. Should we buy this? Do we hire this person? Is this person the highest and best use of their gift? Um, do we need more talent? What areas do we need to staff? Do we need to buy equipment or whatever the case may be? So I'll give you an example. So we gather in a rented facility here in the city. We moved into that facility, it had nothing. It was just a big white shell. You know what I'm saying? And so we could go in there and gather in that big white shell, but there's nothing in there. There's no lights, there's no microphones, there's no wires, there's no nothing. We had to put, six-figure money to fix that room. You know, some people didn't feel comfortable with that. We had to explain to some people, well, do you know how much it costs for a sound system? It's like 30 grand. And for lighting, it was like 20 grand. You got to paint and all this. So, you know, we had to make an investment to make an environment that's conducive for us to be properly um, impacting the lives of people in a way that's excellence. Like not just because of church, it got to be done sloppy. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? People think because of church, it got to always be in a basement with water dripping through the ceiling. Why can't it be done with excellence? So, we have to put six-figure money into that. And so you got to make these kind of decisions and know what to earmark money for. It's no difference than running a corporation. You know what I'm saying? You got to know what you earmarking money for, who you're hiring, what your budget is, what your next initiatives are for the following year, and so forth and so forth. And especially if you have millions of dollars coming in, you have to steward that money well. You know
You
what
got
I'm
millions
saying?
of dollars coming in?
We have
You kind of started a little bit there, Zach.
we are a seven-figure organization. Yeah, we are a seven-figure organization. Like how you was talking about that in your. We are a seven-figure organization, but here's the thing. When you think about like when I think about like what Matt does, like Matt is a seven-figure dude. He's a boss. His pipeline is so gigantic. Everybody wants to do real estate, buy a house, whatever the case may be. Right? My pipeline is not like that. My pipeline is people believing in what we're trying to accomplish in the city. My pipeline is relational equity. My pipeline is only people believing in me as a man of integrity and a man with a vision. So my pipeline could dry up tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? If some scandal break, and I get caught up in a hotel with somebody, my pipeline is gone. They're not gonna forgive me for
Bro,
that.
they be forgiving. They be real forgiving these
You'll be
days.
surprised how quick that pipeline dry up. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? If I get caught up, my pipeline is going to dry up. If I'm not a man of integrity, so my pipeline is different than like a business pipeline. It's just based on integrity, honesty, character, and the fact that I feel like I have a vision that was given to me by God.
What
So
about the ones that are not with integrity though? Do you have personal feelings about that? Or is that like your philosophy on like we're not monolithic, like they're doing their thing their way and I'm just doing my thing my way? Because there's some pastors out here that's giving y'all a bad day.
A lot of them.
A lot of them publicly.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah, so man, that's real. So when I think about you, right? How you say you got a relationship with God, but you don't really go to no church. I think there's a lot of people, and I think I said this, it's like they don't have a problem with God, they got a problem with the people that represent
Mm-hmm.
him. Right. So there are a lot of pastors out here who don't have integrity, who are stealing money and not integrous in their whereabouts. And that's unfortunate. And they give God a bad name. That's not going to end. It's been that way for thousands of years. It's been that way since Jesus walked the earth. It's going to continue to be that way. And that's unfortunate. Um, I pray for them. I do my best not to judge them. But it does hurt when that stereotype is placed upon you, when you know you're doing your best to try to be integrous But it's the industry that we in. It's the tough part of what I do. There's bad apples in every industry. You know what I mean? So, um, like for example, when I think about my brother Matt and his industry, when you hear him talk on his interviews, he always talk about trying to do right by people, and he's always talking about trying to do right by people, trying to empower people, whatever the case may be. That's why he's trusted. And it's interesting. You and I just met, right? Obviously, I'm gonna go look you up and see what you do in your industry, but this brother's trusted in this industry. He tried to do right by people. You know what I'm saying? He put my wife and I in the home we live in now. He tries to do things right by people. So I feel like, and then you got people with mortgages who are shisty. You got people in this industry who are grimy. You know what I'm saying? For them, it's only about the bottom line, but not about the people. And so that's in everything. I don't know why we expect it in the church to be different. I think there's a higher standard.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a
It's
higher
godly.
standard.
Yeah,
Godly
it's
stuff.
godly. It's the godly
And it's
stuff.
the
Yeah,
preaching. It's
it's,
like I'm
Yeah.
preaching to you what you should be doing, but
yeah.
then I'm not doing it.
Yeah, so I mean, I
It's
can
like a big
understand
ass
there's a higher
competition.
standard for us, but it's bad apples in the batch too, and it's unfortunate.
I mean, I think it's definitely unfortunate,
Yeah,
but I think those people going to hell. Like, I'm just gonna be honest with you. You're going to hell if you mess up with the God's money. Like you mess up the church's money, you're going to hell.
it's unfortunate, man.
Like there's no reason you should be messing up and scamming in church.
Yeah, it's
Like
unfortunate, man.
it is what it is, and it
I
ain't
think
what
a lot of that is really linked to lack of fear. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's two things I fear. I fear God, and I fear the IRS. You know what I mean? I don't want to do things in propriety, end up in prison. I don't want a prison ministry. And I fear God. I felt his discipline. And so I think sometimes when a lot of these leaders, I'm not saying I made mistakes too. I think when we just don't have no reverence, we just think we could do what we want and get away with it. But for us, it don't work that way. You know what I mean? So I just think it takes more reverence.
So what are three? If somebody's watching this, right, and they want to start a church,
I want to start a church, but I don't know how. Is that a prerequisite? Is that a prerequisite?
give me 3 steps.
Three steps to
Three
start the
steps to
church.
start your church.
Yeah. So three steps to church. And number one, know that you're called. Know that this is what God wants you to do. Because the pressure of doing it one season gonna be so great that if you don't have confidence that God called you to do it, you're gonna bow out, you're gonna quit. I've been tempted to quit many times. And the only thing that keep me there is I know that God told me to do this. This is not what I wanted to do. So number one, I think you gotta know God called you to do that. Okay, that's the first step. Okay. The second step, you gotta have clarity about the vision for your life, your church, because we live in a highly competitive comparison culture, which
A
compare.
highly competitive comparison culture.
Yeah, and comparison is a thief of joy. You're not gonna have joy and feel happiness if you're always comparing yourself to others. So I think you gotta have clarity about what your calling is, what you're racing. So number one, know that you're called. Number two, have clarity about what your vision is. And number three, be faithful no matter what. You just gotta be faithful no matter what. My church was started with nothing. My wife and I moved here from, we was living in, we left
Amazing.
North Carolina, we was living in
Ohio
Ohio
or
for a
something like
minute.
that. Yeah.
We had like $2,000 in our account. And I knew when I was leaving Bible college, I knew like God was calling me to start a church. I didn't know where. And then I kind of felt like it was Atlanta. You know what I'm saying? And I remember telling my wife, I gotta go find a place for us to live, but we ain't got no money. I took like $1,000 from my account. We only had like $2,000 at the time. I came here on a one-way ticket and I called and said, I'm not coming home until I find a place for us to live. I spent a week here, drove all around the city. Man, this white man had a crib down in South Atlanta, small, like 800 square feet. I mean, tiny, it was like a one-room box. And I remember I was talking to him. He was like, yo, why are you here? I said, I think God called me to start a church. I need a place for my family and I to live. He said, can you pay 1 month's rent? I said, yeah, that's all I got. He said, dropped me the keys, flew home. I moved my family here on a Ryder truck. When we pulled up in front of that crib and emptied that Ryder truck, we had no money in our account. We had no personal money. I had 3 children. I had no job. I had no friends. I didn't know anybody here. See, you got to know that you're called to do stuff like that, you know, to show up in a place you've never been with no family, no friends, no job, no connections, no organizational backing. But I knew that God had called me to be here. See, so if you're not If you're not sold on that call, if you don't know that God is called, it's going to be too many times you're going to be tempted to quit. So you got to know that you're called. You got to know that you're clear about what your mission and vision is. And then you got to be faithful to starting, staying, and finishing no matter what.
And you got to go to Bible college.
Nah, you ain't got to go to Bible college. I
That's
wouldn't even
not
suggest that for
prerequisite.
everybody.
Okay.
Why wouldn't you?
Because I think some of these seminaries be turning people out, have them coming out believing things that's not true, not accurate. I don't think you got to go to Bible college. I think you just got to be a good student on yourself. You know, I don't have this big pedigree. I wasn't raised in the American church and all this other stuff. The Bible college I went to was 2 years. It wasn't like seminary. I don't think you have to go to Bible college. You know what I mean? I just think you got to be faithful to study and you got to know how to communicate. I don't think, see, like when we was talking off camera, you said something I teach my kids. Like, so I got this 17-year-old and everybody's trying to pressure him to go to college. And I'm like, why you want to do that? Is that what you really want to do? Is that really necessary for your calling? So I'm not pressuring my 17-year-old saying, man, you got it. And he got like a 1400 on his SAT. Every day our mail is packed with all these schools trying to recruit him. I'm like, man, you know what? Let me tell you something, man. I told him, I don't want you to feel the pressure to conform to what everybody's doing. You don't have to go to college and work one job for 30 years. And you don't have to do that. I told my kids, I just want you to fulfill your purpose. If that don't include college, I'm content with that. Your mom and I ain't beefing. All we want you to do is fulfill your calling and do your best. If that don't include college, you go with me. If that is college, you go with me. And so I don't feel like you have to go to Bible college to be successful. I mean, the education helps. If you can do it, do that. But I don't feel like it's a mandatory prerequisite to be successful. I didn't graduate from seminary, but give me a microphone, no. You
See,
feel what I'm
that's me
saying?
right there. Give me the microphone. God gonna speak through me. But
Yeah.
can I quote that Bible verse?
Yeah, give me a microphone, though.
The people want you to know them Bible verses.
Yeah, give me a microphone.
Give you one mic.
Give me one mic. Just give me a mic and my Bible. And I ain't been to seminary. Give me a microphone and a couple ears to listen.
What about a non-denominational church?
Mine's a non-denominational. I'm not connected to any organization. We started from
Wait,
scratch.
what does non-denominational mean? You're
mean-
still a Christian church, though, right?
Yeah, you're just not attached to an organization. You know what I'm saying? So you got denominations that are built out organizations who give oversight and help plant other churches. We're
Oh,
not
gotcha.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah, ours is just separate. We don't have no organizational covering.
What about like a spiritual center?
A spiritual
See, I'm
center.
serious about this,
Yeah,
right? I'm like
yeah. Keep it going.
asking for myself.
A spiritual center. Tell me what you mean by that.
I mean, it's not necessarily a Bible-based center, spiritual center. So maybe we do meditation. Maybe I do speak about God, but I'm not quoting a Bible verse.
Okay. I'm not too adept about those. So I don't have a lot of insight.
You don't know if that exists.
I don't have a lot of insight on a spiritual center. I'm not sure. I don't even think I've ever heard of one, but I want to be firm on my lane and what I believe and stand on what I believe. So I'm not so sure about the whole spiritual center thing.
Okay.
I mean, I think they have like, I kind of understand what you're saying because I've seen those around where it's like heavy meditation and it's
More
like,
like personal power
Yeah.
type of
it's more
empowerment.
like more self.
Self-empowerment. Yeah.
I've seen
'Cause
that.
I do feel like also, and I hope none of my questions are
That ain't bothering me at all.
offensive, but I do also feel like sometimes it's less personal power because everything is like God is, and no, I shouldn't say God, more like Jesus. I'm giving all of my power to something outside of me. And sometimes giving the power is also the responsibility where I'm not taking responsibility for my role in things
Yeah.
because it's like, I don't have any responsibility. I don't have any power. It's all.
Yeah, I know. I think that's a good question. So I would say I think that's a misconception a lot because I think people feel like if you have a relationship with God, He's gonna take the responsibility to do everything for you, and He don't operate that way. I think sometimes we project things upon God that's our responsibility to do. So, for example, right when I was in Ohio, and I felt like God was telling me come to Atlanta. Let me tell you, He was not gonna go get a rider truck for me. He was not going to pack up my
But if
family.
you didn't make that decision, I feel like somebody else would have blamed God for it not working out when you had clear instructions, but
Yeah.
you didn't follow those
So
instructions.
that's good. So I feel like a walk with God is more like a partnership,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like, there's things that he's responsible for, and then there's things that we're responsible for, and that partnership functions good to the both. We hold up our end of the bargain in a sense. There's some things he's not going to do for me. He expects me to do for myself. And so I feel like walking with God doesn't make me a robot. I am a human being. I have a free will. I make personal decisions. And so I think it's a partnership. It's not controlling. He's not controlling. It's a partnership. And I feel like the partnership flourished to the degree he's always going to hold up his end of the bargain because he's God. It's just I just got to do my part. He does his part, and then we flourish together. So it's not control. It's partnership. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not control. It's partnership.
I like that.
Yeah, it's partnership.
Good questions.
She's a
Those
bee.
were all my
Keep,
personal
keep,
questions,
keep,
sir.
Yeah, she.
keep them going.
Is this what you do on your podcast?
This is what I do on my podcast. I be like, I've been wondering. Somebody else out there can get some benefit from this, but I've never had an opportunity to sit down with a pastor before. And I do have, my own beliefs and,
Yeah.
like my own, I've never been like I'm just going to stick to the script in any lane, not
Yeah.
just when it comes to religion, but I've always had questions.
Yeah.
And I feel like a big part of what has turned me off from organized religion is like you can't question anything. It's
Yeah.
all, it's all this is what it is, and you just abide by this and you don't ask any questions. You just go along. And that has never been
And I think
me.
that's unfortunate, right? I think that's unfortunate, and that's true. And I think because of that, it keeps people on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the fact that we're having this conversation. We're just conversing. I'll talk to anybody about God or about what I do. And unfortunately, how can I phrase this? Unfortunately, like the faith I subscribe to, Christianity, the progenitor of that faith, Christ, Jesus, he was not like a lot of what we see religion is today.
Mm-hmm.
He's very different. He had conversations. He talked to people who were nothing like him. He was open. He would sit and have conversations with people. I mean, he goes into towns. I remember he went into a small town I actually visited in Israel called Jericho. And he walked through this town, and the wealthiest man in the town, who was also like, think about a Bernie Madoff. Y'all remember Bernie Madoff,
Yeah.
right? How he scammed everybody out of those billions of
Yeah.
dollars with that illegal hedge fund. He goes to a town, he finds, in a sense, a man who was like a Bernie Madoff. This is a dude don't nobody want to talk to. Don't nobody want to be around because they think, man, he's a scam. But when the Lord rolls up in that town, he goes to that man's crib, eats that man's table. They sip bread and they eat bread and they sip wine and they relax. I mean, so he's having conversations with people so he's open to these kind of things. Like we having this talk right now. But when you stuffy and you hyper religious and you're judgmental and you can't have a civil conversation with it, you push people out. And I don't believe that's the way it should be done because the progenitor of the faith we prescribe to, he wasn't like that. I think a lot of what we see in Christianity is disconnected from the Christ of Christianity. And that's why so many people are put out by it. Let me say that again. A lot of what we call Christianity is disconnected from the Christ of Christianity. And that's why so many people are put off by it. Jesus wasn't like a lot of these people. Jesus was liked by people who was not like him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the problem.
So maybe I need to go read the Bible because Jesus was he sounded real cool. He was sipping
Yeah.
the wine and
Yeah. You didn't think I
breaking
never
bread.
looked at it like that. I always thought Jesus was stuffy.
He was not stuffy.
But it's the people who are communicating to us about Jesus, people who are retelling the stories
Yeah.
and their
I
interpretation.
mean, think about this, right? Let me drop this on y'all. People who was nothing like Jesus liked Jesus. Everybody liked him. I'm gonna tell y'all something that's really crazy. In history, this is biblical history and history outside of the Bible. The only people that did not like Jesus were people who were hyper religious. I want you to think about that. People who were snooty
trying to
and
put them in a
stuffy,
box.
trying to put people in a box, who have rules and regulations to put on people. You had this camp called the Pharisees, this other camp called the Sadducees. They put rules and regulations on everybody. You can't do this. You can't wear pants. You can't get earrings. You can't have tattoos and sleeves and all that. That was the only people Jesus had a problem with. He never had a problem talking to the girl coming out of Magic City. Wino on the corner.
You heard that part of my interview?
Say that now. He never had a problem. Right? Like he never had a problem with the sister coming out of Magic City or the wine on the corner or the dude that's packing a pistol or the brother that's smoking weed. He never had a problem with people. His biggest problem was with people who was hyper religious and snooty. As to think about it, yo, like, I mean, he was a carpenter, so he worked with stone and block. So he had a good figure, he had a good shape. Children loved him, women loved him, single people loved him, men loved him, people followed him. He changed all of society. I mean, more songs is written about him than any person else, more paintings have been painted about him than any person else, more books have been written about him than anyone else. He's the most influential person probably in history. And the only people that did not like him were hyper religious people. Mad cool. He's cooler than what people think. The problem is they got to get through all this nonsense to get to him. But you can't filter through all this religious junk. So they're trying to filter through all this religious nonsense to get to him. And when you really get to him, you realize, man, he's a friend. He's a brother. He's cool. He was the man. He was the man. He was somebody you want to hang out with all day. He laughed. He cracked jokes. He put kids on his lap. You know, he helped people. He was calm. He shed tears when people hurt. He sipped wine. He hung out. He went to parties. He was
Jesus,
I think I
Jesus,
do
Jesus was a vibe.
Jesus was
this
a
was
whole
a vibe.
vibe.
But how come we have not had a new version of this Bible? I feel like that would really help me and a lot of other people. Because I cannot, for the life of me, get through the thou arts and the. Seriously, I'm not even lying to you, and I'm a pretty intelligent person. But by the time I reread that passage 25 times, I still don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
So when you're sitting here saying it's like, and giving a different interpretation of it, it's like, okay, I can get that. But when I'm reading the Bible for myself, I'm not getting that.
I think it depends on what translation you're reading. Like, you
Which
ever heard
one do I
you
need?
ever heard of the King James translation?
Yeah.
Is that the one you read?
I feel like I done read all the NIV, the
I think
King James, the
I think
NLV. What is it?
so I think, let me tell you what I think. Right. So again, I've been to Israel. I've been in Jerusalem. I've seen some of the original scrolls of the Bible, like the original manuscripts that's 1,000 years old, and they're damaged and fragile, and they got to be kept in glass with red light to make sure they don't wither away. And so I've seen some of these original manuscripts. From those original manuscripts, we've made copies throughout the years, and some of those copies were written in languages that we don't use. Like the most popular one, the King James, we don't speak Elizabethan English. So how are you going to understand that? You just got to find a translation that is credible, that when you read it, you can understand.
What do you recommend?
Which one is that?
I recommend, I like the ESV, the English Standard Version.
Okay.
Okay. The most widely read is the NIV, the New International Version, which is the most widely read. And those are the two I probably would hang my hat on. I know, like, my kids, they read the NLT because it's very simple language for them to understand. But as a pastor, I rock with the ESV.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Over the summer, I went out and bought a teen Bible.
The Teen Bible?
As silly.
I ain't mad at you.
Because I'm like,
it's not silly.
I would
Yo, it's
like
not
to
silly at all.
know the references, because again, it's the moment I say God, Bible thumpers be in my comments like
The Bible thumpers.
you know, they be trying to go extra, girl. I'm like, does me not quoting the Bible verse take away from anything that I just said? I don't think so. But because y'all seem to feel that way, let me go get this little teen Bible and
How
see
old
if
is your first child?
18 months.
He's 18 months right now?
Yes.
He's 18 months right now.
Right now.
Okay. You ever see him like trying to scoot up and climb up on a chair? You see him trying to do stuff? When he does that, how do you feel?
I feel like, oh my God, I want to help you.
You want to help
But I'm
him?
gonna let you figure it out, son.
Right.
I be helping him a little bit when he does.
But you don't scold him for trying.
Absolutely not.
So if he's trying to climb up on here, you see him trying to make an effort to get up here, you don't scold him for doing that. Right. So when Jesus was alive, he referred to God as a father. You're a parent. When you see a child trying, do you scold them for trying? You're proud of them for trying. So the fact you went out and bought a teenage Bible, the father would look at that and be like, look, she's trying. And he's pleased with the fact that at least you're trying. If it takes you reading a teenage Bible to understand what I'm saying, I would rather you read that teenage Bible, understand what I'm saying, than read this theological Bible and you have no idea what I'm saying. So we got to understand that as a father, he appreciates the fact that you're trying. If we start seeing him more as a father, we will understand him better. Not some of these earthly fathers that have failed us. A good father. If we see him as a good father, we'll understand he's not this cruel, mean beast that we make him out to be. Jesus referred to him as a father. And I think for a lot of us, we have a hard time connecting with God as a father because our earthly fathers failed us. And so there's this gap in understanding of what God feels like as a father because we didn't have an earthly example. So if we had this perfect earthly example, a perfect earthly example would be a father who's loving, who knows how to do gentle discipline. He's gracious. He protects, He knows how to guide and teach, but some of us don't know what that feel like. He talks to you and he loves on you. He guides you and gives you wisdom and he coaches you. He tells you go out there and do that. But we don't know what that feels like. So when we think about God, we see him more as like as a boss or a taskmaster. We don't see him how Jesus revealed him as a loving father because we don't have that good picture down here. So where a lot of us don't have a picture of a good earthly father, it's hard for us to connect with God as a heavenly father because we don't know what that feel like. My father, he didn't talk to me, so I expect God not to talk. My father was cruel, so we think God is cruel. My father beat me all the time, so we think God just want to beat us all the time. My father never said, "I'm proud of you." So we don't feel like God is proud of us when we see us trying, or we don't feel like God is proud when you buy the teenage Bible because you're trying to read. So because we don't know what that feels like with our earthly father, we don't know how to connect with him like a heavenly father. I tell you, he'd rather you read that teenage Bible and understand something than read a highly theological Bible and you understand nothing. I'd rather you understand something than nothing. And the same way you're proud of your boy when he's climbing up the chair, he's trying, he could be proud of his daughter or his son if he see them trying. You see what I'm saying? Nobody don't paint that picture of him. But that's the real picture. That's the picture Jesus painted.
I like that.
Y'all want to talk about anything else besides God and the
Nah,
Bible?
we need Jesus gems.
Yeah,
What are you talking about?
yeah.
We talk. Give us a last Jesus gem.
The last Jesus gem.
We like these Jesus gems.
This is like a rare occasion in my world, so I apologize if that's all we talking about, but I really have questions.
Nah, it ain't bothering me.
Nah, these were great questions.
Yeah,
But I like this type of format.
yeah. The
It's just
format's
freestyle
good. Yeah, it's just freestyle.
conversation.
My last Jesus gem would be that God loves humanity. He loves everybody in this room. He has a plan and purpose for us. And if we discover that plan, we discover that purpose through a relationship with Jesus Christ, we'll be much better human beings for it. He's a loving father. He's someone to run to and not run away from. I just hope more people will run to him and not run away from him. Don't have to be afraid of him. He has our best interests at heart. That's my last Jesus gem.
I got one more question.
Go ahead.
Again, don't take any offense to this question.
No offense taken.
Do you think or do you believe that you have to go through Jesus to get to God? I struggle with that.
You on something today? I like.
These are my real personal questions.
I like this.
So I'm gonna respond to your question by telling you my opinion don't matter. Okay. So I'm gonna ask you a question. Okay. When Jesus was alive, he claimed that the only way to God was through him. And there was no other way. Right. That was his claim. That's not mine. The question is either he was telling the truth or he was a liar. And that's for you to decide. See, because if I tell you my opinion, we'll argue, right? My opinion is I'm gonna just rock with him. If somebody can die and resurrect and pull that off, I'm gonna rock with that person. So I think in this space we argue. But I don't like to argue in this space. I just say this is what he claimed when he was alive. He's either telling the truth or he was a liar. Where we hang our hat would depend on what happens next in terms of that conversation. That's what he claimed. I'm gonna rock with him on that. He says he's the only way to the Father. I'm gonna believe him. I don't know too many people that can die and be resurrected and pull that off. So I'm gonna just rock with him on that one.
Okay.
Amen to that. Jesus gems.
You can drop the mic on that
Featuring Pastor Philip Mitchell and Coriel. That's the name of this episode too. Jesus gems. That's the name of this episode. Now this was a vibe. All right, we out. Peace.